about seafood? What should we be looking for there?
Yeah, so seafood, especially if we talk about Mediterranean eating patterns, we know that eating patterns one of the healthiest ways, and it's full of seafood. And why? It's low in saturated fat naturally, even up to 0 grams of saturated fat for most of your seafood. So that's why it's definitely a healthier alternative, especially compared to red meat. Again, it doesn't mean you have to give up your red meat. It just means focus on your portion of red meat and your frequency of red meat. And you can include seafood on some nights instead of your red meat, for example, as you're planning your weekly grocery list and your weekly menus.
What should we be looking for in grains then? That's another part of your plate.
So we jump to another side of the plate and your healthy whole grains. And how can you truly identify if it is a whole grain? So the most common way people say is, I'm eating the brown bread, for example, or it says it's wheat. Isn't that a whole grain? So there's one way to really make sure that it is a whole grain. It does involve label reading, but now we're going to talk about another part of the label, and that's your ingredients list. So the ingredient list is listed in order of weight. So the items that are higher in presence in the product are larger in amount. So the first ingredient of any grain, which would be a pasta, a cereal, or a bread, should have the word whole. So it should say whole grain, whole wheat, whole oats. As long as you see that word whole, it doesn't matter the type of grain. We have so many types of grains. Wheat is definitely the most common type of grain. But as long as the word whole is listed as the first ingredient, you're truly buying a whole grain. Now, because if we go by just the labeling terms, we see words like multigrain or 12, seeds and grains. It looks brown as well, and you might think it is a whole grain. There's only one way to verify, and that's by looking at the ingredient list and looking for that first word to say whole.